Good afternoon. We're just kind of settling in for the evening. I'm getting some afternoon chores done, going for my evening walk after supper. I highly suggest that you make that a habit. It's a time that I can breathe and get just some quiet time to compose myself, think and pray. And so this evening I wanted to talk about a post that I made a couple weeks ago, maybe last week. I can't remember. All my posts run together. Sorry, my hair is like nuts, crazy. Curly hair, don't care. Anyway, but I made a post about getting your house in order. And a lot of people do not understand exactly what that means, and to what extent. For me, oh, there's some turkey. I don't know if you can see them. They ran down in the woods. We have a mama and some babies. That's exciting. We've had a lot of turkey this year. A lot. Anyway, I got distracted. But I wanted to talk about getting your house in order and what that exactly means. I think that it can mean different things to different people depending on your situation, your family life, what you've got going on presently. So I'm just going to share what that entails for us here at Honey Hill. For us, that first and foremost means getting myself right with God, realizing His sovereignty, and coming underneath His will and praying for His will to be done. I will tell you, your house will be chaotic and it will not be in order if you are in complete rebellion against God. A lot of people hate to hear that, especially they hate to hear Jesus Christ. But first and foremost, making Him the center of your home and the center of your family and the center of your marriage. We are, just today I heard about another shooting at a high school. And one thing that Satan loves is chaos and fear. And with God and with Christ as my Savior, fear and chaos leave. Now, does that mean that my kids don't get on my nerves sometimes, or I feel that things are not getting done around the house? By no means. But when I start feeling that way, that means that I need to step back and I need to recenter myself, ground myself in Christ, and I thought I saw something else down there, sorry, and realize who is in control. So that's first and foremost. Next is my children. So some of you would say, well, what about your spouse? I'm going to get to that here in a minute. Next is my children. So I've figured out if my kids are taken care of first, I can focus on other things properly. So when I'm getting my house in order, that also means that I am looking at my children and their character flaws, their personalities, skills that we need to work on, which, we homeschool, so that may include, extra reading or things where they're having trouble. But my first priority is making sure that they are grounded in God and in Christ, and if I'm discipling them correctly in His Word. So again, those two are kind of connected, but God and then children, their characters, building disciples, skills. What skills do I need to teach them? Cooking, sewing, farming, gardening, animal husbandry. What are those things that I need to teach them that will help them the most in their life? If there is an emergency too, you've got to keep that in mind when you are raising your children. You are raising them in a way where if something does happen, they know what to do, who to go to, things like that. For instance, my kids, if something happens to me or happens to Vance, they know, if there's no phone available, they know who to go to. Number one, they know how to get there. Number two, and the person that I've granted this also knows how to get into contact with my parents and Vance's parents. So that is just, emergency situation, teaching them to do things on their own, what to do in case of an emergency, basic skills, cooking, things like that. Next, your marriage, your spouse. And I think this is really hard for a lot of people because I'm focusing on the family. And I think there's a lot of families that don't know how to do that. They don't know how to build relationships together. They don't know how to rely on one another when it comes to not just income, but basic skill sets in the home. They lack that family economy and the duties of those in the household. So these three, God and Christ, your children, and then your spouse, are all very important when it comes to the rest, getting your household in order. So with your spouse. So a lot of times, yes, material goods, resources is a big priority, making sure that your spouse is taken care of. But one of the biggest things is spiritually. Where is your spouse standing spiritually? Are they getting your support? Are they getting adequate, and I don't want to say just attention, but are you all working together as a team to complete tasks? That's very important. There was a couple several years ago that they were having some marriage difficulties, and our suggestion to them was to find something that they could do together and be productive together. And I think that is one of the biggest things for most couples, is finding something that you all can be productive with together. And so for us, that looks a little bit different because I feel like we are doing this, Vance and I are doing this daily. We're doing it weekly with our children. It's a habit that we've built over the years. And so it's not as difficult. We don't need to go out and buy a puzzle or buy, go on dates frequently or things like that, because I feel like we do have that team relationship going on. And so that is something that I would probably say is the most important, is having that team mindset. Not this independent, well, I go to work, I make my money, I spend it on this. What are you all doing together? Make it we. What are we doing? What are we building? What are our goals? That is the next thing as far as making sure that your house is in order. Next, I would suggest resources. Now, again, this is one of those things that I believe can mean different things to different people, depending on where you're living and what your lifestyle looks like. For us, my biggest thing is making sure that we have a pantry, a rotating pantry, food sources. My barn cats are coming out. They rarely come out. They know I've got their food. Anyway, So pantry food resources is our number one thing because of my kids. Again, I'm thinking about my children and what they will need to survive if something was to happen, and making sure my house is in order as far as organization. And I'm gonna laugh because I had a little bit of, I didn't have a breakdown today, but had a little bit of a had to step back and breathe, refocus, because for me things are disorganized, but stepping back and realizing that they're really not. Anyway, but making sure that you have things in their proper place, food, first aid, animal medicines if you need them, any other emergency items that you can think of, matches, candles, things like that. I can make a whole list of things that you may find beneficial for your household, and I may do that just to help you out. But making sure that you have those things. Also, I've got a pantry list that helps me keep an eye on what I've got stocked in my pantry. That may be something useful for you. And I'm a list person. I like to have my list and see what I've got on one page paper, and I don't have to look around the house for stuff. It lets me know what I have as far as inventory. So again, making sure my house is in order, having the resources, having the supplies that I think my family is going to need. For us, again, that looks a little bit different because that also includes seeds, animal medicine, that includes feed, that includes, hay for the wintertime. Also, one of the biggest things that I've been thinking about lately, and I don't know why I've been thinking about it so much, I don't know, but is clothing. Do you have extra clothing? I know a lot of people have this minimalist attitude, and they want to get rid of everything, every piece of clothing that they have. I don't necessarily like to do that because you never know. Even if your kids aren't going to use it, or yourself or your spouse, there may be a family member, there may be a friend that may need it. So for me, I hang on to a lot of our winter stuff. I hang on to a lot of jackets, things like that. I feel like the summertime is a little bit, you still need clothing, but it's not like a survival situation where wintertime, it actually may be a situation where you're going to have something to keep warm. So clothing, do you have plenty of things like that for different types of weather? Do you have a rain jacket? What about your shoes? Do you have shoes put away or put back? And I know this is probably a little bit out of some people's comfort zones because they're really not thinking about the future a whole lot at this point. But just think about the clothing again. Also, what about books? Books is another one that weighs really heavy on me, simply because we use our phones so much. We use all the social medias, the YouTube, Google searching for finding recipes, or finding, for me, herbalism is a big thing, herbology. I use it a lot as far as identifying plants. Now, I have my physical resources, and I will always advocate. I don't know if you can see my cat. Oh, see her? Isn't she pretty? She's one of our little barn cats. She's beautiful. She's like a tabby calico. I've never seen that color before. But anyway, having that physical resource where you can look it up in a book, because there may come a time when you don't have your phone or internet access. And two, as an example, like with herbalism, AI is causing a lot of havoc on the internet with certain articles pertaining to plants, and even canning. I know there's been some instances where it's actually generated some very poor recipes for canning, and to me that can be a life and death situation. If you can something improperly, and get botulism, you get really sick and die from that. So always double check your sources on with the internet. and even like with plants again, that's another one where there could be false information be given out, and something could be deadly. A part of a plant could be deadly, and because of AI. So always double check, always cross reference, and I use my physical books to do that. So I will always be a big proponent of having your own physical libraries. We have collected over many years, and I go to a lot of thrift stores, a lot of people giving their books away. You don't have to go to bookstores and pay this big price tag price off these books. There are many people that I've gotten several free books from. Again, thrift stores. I love thrift stores because I've found some really, really good books for $1. But start building that library. Also for your children. Build a book library, children's book library for your children. Something that they can pass down to their kids. I love our family library that we've got. We've got so many resources that I hardly ever need to really get on my phone if I need. I simply just do it because I'm lazy. I'll admit that. So start a physical library. Have those resources on hand in case something was to happen. I don't even know what number I'm on. But what about emergency contacts? And when I talk about emergency contacts, I'm not just talking about family, but I'm talking about having that circle of friends. And I think I'm probably down to maybe 5 at this point. Hey. Ah. Sorry, cat. But I think I'm maybe down to like 5 friends at this point. But that's okay because they're in my circle. So I want you to make sure that you have, we'll see if she comes over here. I want you to make sure that you have your set circle of friends that you can trust if things do get bad, or if there's even an emergency at your home. I'm not talking about like a black swan event or anything like that, but I'm just a basic emergency. Somebody that you can reach out to, that you can trust, that you know will go that extra mile if you need them to. There are several types of people that I would stay away from. Number one, if there's someone that just says they're just too busy, that's a red flag. If they are uninvolved, that's another red flag. If they aren't talking to you on a mature level about things, that's another red flag. And when I say that, I mean when you start talking about, certain situations may be happening and they're just don't really care about it, lukewarm about it, don't really want to discuss it. I wouldn't count them as a go-to in an emergency. That's just my personal opinion. Another thing is I would, be very careful who you talk about what you've got in your resources. I try to be very vague about what I've got, just for my family safety. And I've already had a couple of people that have mentioned, well, if something happens, I'll just come to your house. No, I'm sorry, you're not going to just come to my house and show up for food or whatever. That's not the way that works. My circle is my circle, and that's who I'm going to stick with when it comes to sharing resources and things like that. Unless you can barter with me, we'll talk on that. So also getting your house in order is making sure that your vehicles are good and maintained. You've got gasoline, whether you make sure that you've got tanks full, or you've got extra gas on hand somewhere. That's another thing, because you may have to get up and go. Another one that has been talked about a lot recently is having some assets. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not a gold and silver person. Number one, gold prices are just astronomical. They're off the charts. Nobody can afford what they're asking per ounce right now. No, just, I mean, it's just crazy. I'm a proponent of having a physical pantry, having food set back, because nobody's going to turn down food. You can't eat gold, and quite frankly, I don't know. I mean, I would if somebody was to ask, "Hey, I'll trade you this gold for something." I may, but to me, having physical resources, food, medical supplies, clothing, feed, things like that are worth far more to me than a piece of gold. That's just me personally. So keep that in mind. You need to have some assets sitting around, something that you can barter with, or something that's not going to lose value. And I really think that pantry, having that pantry, is never going to lose value. Another one is self-defense. What are you doing? What are you going to do when, now again, this depends on where you're at. I'm never going to say never, but I live out in the middle of the country, and the likelihood of somebody coming, I mean, could be pretty high, I guess, but I don't think it's going to happen like what's been going on in Chicago or New York or Colorado, with some of the gangs coming and just completely taking over apartment buildings. Some of you may be in that predicament where that is a likelihood. What about self-defense? What do you have that's going to keep your family safe? Can you fight somebody off, or can you get away from somebody? Those are some questions that you need to start asking yourself. For me, I make sure that I run weekly. We're doing a lot of farm work. She's so pretty. A lot of farm work on the farm, and so I do feel like I have pretty good endurance, strength, typical probably. But that's something. What is your physical body like? Could you run a short distance if you had to? Could you get away from somebody? And Vance is actually a really good teacher on self-defense. And so we may do a video about how to just simply get away from somebody. Again, me being a woman, or my children, they're not going to fight off a 250-pound man. I'm sorry. I can't fight off Vance. If he wants to, he could hold me down. He could, anybody his size is going to be able to do what he does. And so you have to keep that in mind. It's not about fighting. It's about getting away. So how well are you physically? Do you need to do a body check? How are we doing on those things? I highly suggest, I know a lot of people are not runners, but you can walk daily, get out, get fresh air, get the sunshine, learn to breathe correctly. And if you want to get started with running, message me and I'll see if we can help out and get you some training, start you off slow and work your way up and get some endurance. I really think that we're at a time where I haven't seen that black one, where we need to be really conscious of our body and where we are physically. What are we able to do? Diet is another one. And if you know me, you know that I'm pretty aware of what's in our processed food. That doesn't mean that we eat great all the time. I had like half a pan of cheesy bread earlier, like an hour ago. So I'm not going to be hypocritical and tell you that I'm just the perfection, I'm the greatest example of non-processed foods and healthy foods and things like that. But we need to limit them. We need to limit the Cokes. Sorry, there's a motorcycle. We need to limit the sugar. We need to limit the processed foods. it's becoming a problem. And I think that if a majority of people would cut out the processed foods and the Cokes, they would see their life change. They would see their health change, and maybe they would even be able to come off some of the prescription medications that they're on. So look at your diet. What is your diet consisting of? What can you change? What can you change slowly? Again, I did a video on gut health. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And just like some of these Cokes, it's addiction. And I drink coffee in the morning. The caffeine for me, maybe it's the caffeine or maybe it's just the habit. But anyway, we need to step back and look at our diets and see how we can be productive and make a positive change in that avenue. Because just that diet can change the other physical attributes that are going on with you, and make you more, better equipped for exercise and have that desire to exercise. So those are just a few things that I think, getting your house in order means to me. That may be different for you. You may have some suggestions for other people. If you do, put them in the comments, because I think people are looking for those suggestions, and just to have that encouragement around them to make the changes, or to make themselves accountable. That's a naughty word, I think. People don't like accountability. They don't want to be accountable to anybody else, and they don't want to have to look at themselves and maybe determine those negative attributes that they have. But I think that's where our strength is recognizing and realizing what our weaknesses are, and then going and being productive and making a change for the better with those insights. So if you do have a suggestion, put them in the comments below. I really appreciate your all's time, and I hope this is helpful in getting your house in order.